Hello! I have just read chapter 18 of The Last of the Jedi, The Desperate Mission. So, this is definitely a bit of a, this is one of the solutions for the cliffhangers that definitely makes you feel like you've been a bit cheated. Because in the last chapter it said there was no way Obi-Wan could have gotten into the garrison in time. But then Obi-Wan just puts the speeder into full throttle and just makes it into the doors of the garrison within the last few moments, no problem. So it does feel a bit, you do feel a bit cheated, because it literally contradicts itself. But oh well, you know, you could have had Obi-Wan jump down, cut into the door of the garrison with his lightsaber, but you know, it's alright. Anyway, Obi-Wan, he loses a bit of his speeder. He doesn't know what, we don't know what, but it doesn't really matter because his speeder winds up crashing and blowing up anyway. But we're getting a bit ahead. He flies on, he uses his lightsaber to cut off the stun cuffs on Ferrous Olin. And he also picks up Olin and pulls him onto the speeder while pushing the stormtroopers surrounding him away, which does catch Malorum's attention. Obi-Wan hands Olin his lightsaber for Ferrous to start deflecting the incoming blaster bolts, and eventually a wrist rocket is sent their way. Now, I do think, oh, is that Boba Fett? Is Boba Fett somehow here? But then I remembered, from what I read on Malorum's Wikipedia article, that he does have wrist rockets. He does have wrist rockets on his armour. So I assume the wrist rocket came from Malorum. Anyway, they narrowly avoid the rocket. And they do wind up, and it does wind up knocking over some troopers, the explosion of the rocket. They make a right, I think it's a sharp right, and Obi-Wan loses control of the speeder in that sharp right, because again, you've got the weight of Malorum, the balance has been upset, not Malorum, or Ferrous, the weight has been upset because of losing that part, and he winds up just, he's also been pushing the engine, it's starting to smoke, it can't really take much more. And so when Obi-Wan does take that right, he loses control of the steering, and he and Ferrous jump off as his speeder crashes into the wall, and they have to they jump off and they go into the vents, and they think they've got a few minutes, but no, they only had a few seconds, as the stormtroopers immediately figure out they went into the vents, surprisingly. So they wind up going over to what was it? It was the air filter. It was a filter screen or something like that, and they go up there and they're in a kind of pipe thing room, and they have to not monkey bar, but for some reason they can't walk even though it's a pipe room. They have to hang and move with their hands to make their way through, but eventually they come across a vent, and Ferrous and Obi-Wan have a bit of a talk and say Obi-Wan says they don't know where they are, and there's no hope of getting out if they don't know where they are. So Ferrous suggests that, Ferrous to that. By the way, one of them suggests that, and then the other suggests that they should find an office, and don't download a diagram of the building so they know where, so they can have a few exit strategies. And Obi-Wan agrees. Yeah, that was Ferrous who said that. Okay. And so Obi-Wan eventually finds a utility panel, and they wind up in all offices in Malorum's office, probably the one office they don't want to wind up in. So you know, you've got the head Inquisitor's office. That's probably the one place you don't want to be on an Imperial controlled world. Well, you probably don't want to be in Tarkin or Vader or Palpatine's office either, but out of the ones out of everyone stationed on Balasa, Malorum's probably the last person you want to wind up in an office with, so especially in his personal office. But Ferrus, he goes over to Malorum's starter pad, he starts downloading the schematics, and then he also notices that Malorum has a lot of surveillance files, and only a couple of them. There's not a lot on Balasa, but he then mentions there's some about Polis Marsa. And I completely forgot Polis Marsa was relevant to the Last of the Jedi series, but there was some on Polis Marsa, about Polis Marsa. And if you don't know what planet or asteroid Polis Marsa is, that is the place Obi-Wan and Yoda take Padme in Revenge of the Sith to give birth to Luke and Leia just before she dies. So that's what Polis Marsa is. It's the planet, asteroid thing, moon that Obi-Wan and Yoda take Padme to give birth to Luke and Leia. And Malorum is investigating that. And he had sent an investigator to investigate the med records in the clinic there. Ferrus says that he can't really... But Ferrus says that there was no record of what he was looking for, or if he found anything. And we learn that the rumour is that Padme died to a Jedi in a rebellion. Out of rebellion. Well, not out of rebellion, in a rebellion. As if the Jedi were rebelling against the Republic and she died to a Jedi. I think that's what it was. From what I gathered. It just says the rumour was that she'd been killed by a Jedi during the rebellion. So, yeah. Eventually, though, they hear footsteps. Obi-Wan hears footsteps coming, and he also says to Ferrus to look into the file of Polis Marsa as well. I forgot about that. But we also do learn that Malorum has been gathering the data for Lord Vader, but he hasn't transmitted it yet. So Vader doesn't know about Luke and Leia at the moment. But he also can't figure out what data Malorum has gathered, because the security is so tight, there's 10 levels to it. So, but eventually they hear footsteps. Obi-Wan says, "Quick, someone's coming." And then Ferrus has this very quippy remark, which again, I think is one of the reasons I'm really liking Ferrus's character. He is very funny. And I'm just going to quote it here. "Oh, I was just going to take the wheels off his chair." And Obi-Wan does not find the joke funny at all and just says, "Ferrus, will you come on?" So they go and hide behind the curtains. Because they can't get back into the utility vent. They're in the sensor suite, whatever it was, because that's up on the ceilings and they don't have the time to get into that. So they just go and hide behind the curtains. And lo and behold, who's coming into the office but Malorum and Boba Fett. So that's where I've left off the book for today, and I just have 2 more chapters until I'm on to book 2. I'm finished with this book, I think. But yeah, I enjoy this chapter, quite action-packed. I think you are awaiting the lightsaber duel. You are awaiting the lightsaber duel between Malorum and Obi-Wan, or Malorum and Ferrus. I know Malorum and Ferrus still duel in book 4. I do know they duel in Death on Naboo. And I do know Malorum dies on Naboo, so, you know, really making the title clear there. But I'm fairly sure we don't know Malorum has a lightsaber until book 4. I'm fairly sure that's the case. So, yeah. And to be fair, when you just come to the Legends Inquisitors, you never really know if they have a lightsaber. I mean, High Inquisitor Mox Rosin, he, as far as we are aware, he never owned a lightsaber, he just used a blaster, so, yeah. So I'm fairly sure we don't know that Malorum had a lightsaber till book 4. I could be wrong on that though. I'll find out because I'm intending to read the whole series. Doesn't mean I will read them, I want to make that clear. It doesn't mean I will read them all, but hopefully I read them all. I was intrigued by The Last of the Jedi because of how short the books were, so hopefully I read them all. And I am hoping that will be the case. And again, Inquisitors, I like my Inquisitors in Star Wars. I, for some reason, really do like the Inquisitorius. But anyway, I enjoyed the chapter. I really like that last line from Ferris where he goes, "Oh, I was getting ready to remove the wheels from his chair." That was ever so funny. I do think maybe the opening of the chapter, the payoff for that cliffhanger, was a bit cheap. I think it should have just been, instead of outright saying Obi-Wan couldn't make it in time, just say that adds in a little bit of that suspense of maybe he could make it in time, but the chances were incredibly unlikely. Like I say, there was a hope for Obi-Wan to get in there just in time, but the chances of him being able to get in there were just unlikely, and the doors were almost shut. And that's where you end it off. I think that would have been a good way to end the chapter, because it keeps you suspenseful. It keeps that suspense of it. It isn't just a, okay, how is he going to get in? It's a, will he get in? You know, because you kind of knew he was going to be getting in, but I think if you had it be like that, the question would have been, is he going to get in? And then if he doesn't, how is he going to get in? You know, I think that would have been a much more suspenseful question at the end of that cliffhanger. That I think was a bit of a cheap payoff in this chapter. To have it go from straight, he can't make it into only for him to make it in. You know, it's completely contradictory. So, yeah. But again, I enjoy the chapter. And I enjoy that line from Ferris. And I do like we're starting to see Ferris get a bit more tuned to the Force again. You can kind of already see him tuning to the Force, because it's a very small thing, and it's a piece of lore I don't personally like. You can't deflect blaster bolts without the Force. It's part of the Force ability, Force deflection, which honestly I do not like that. I'm fine with it when it comes to the Force, as if like you're deflecting it with your hand through the Force, but it is a piece of Star Wars lore I do not like when it comes to lightsabers. To me, you should be able to deflect a blaster bolt. The lightsaber should just deflect the blaster bolt even without the Force. So the fact that it doesn't deflect the blaster bolt that you can't deflect a blaster bolt without the Force is a bit of an eye roll for me, but you know, it is what it is, and I do like, at least in this case, I think this is one of the few times it does work well, because it is one of those implications of, okay, Ferris is slowly attuning to the Force, he's accessing it in small ways. You know, it's not anything like pushing the stormtroopers away like Obi-Wan did, to get, of course, allow him to pick up Ferris without getting him into any kind of other injuries. He's already got an injured leg, he doesn't need anything else. I know the leg's almost healed, but still. But it is a very small thing, and I think this is one of the few times that I'm fine with you have there with lightsabers deflecting blast bolts only because of the Force, and that's one of the few times I think I'm fine with it, because it is showing that small bit of growth from Ferris. Again, there is a piece. It is a very. I think it is quite an obscure piece of lore that I don't think many people are aware of, and it's definitely not something you're aware of if you only watch the films. So, but also there is Obi-Wan and Ferris jumping off the speeder just before it crashes, and again, we don't exactly know how high up from the ground they were on the air speeder, but if it was quite high up, then again you got that implication that maybe Ferris used the Force to cushion his landing, and then of course you got him jumping up into or climbing up, whatever it was. I think it said he hooked himself up into the fence. So whatever. So again, maybe he used the Force to get up there. We don't know. It doesn't specify, but it is the subtle things like that that is slowly showing him reconnecting to the Force after he helped Obi-Wan in the tunnel. It's reawakened his connection. He's able to access it a little bit easier now. Not fully yet. He's still struggling, but he's having small moments where he's accessing it, and I like those little moments. I think it's quite nice. And then just on the topic of not liking Star Wars lore when it comes to blaster bolts being deflected by lightsabers, there is the argument of, oh, you need the precognition to know where the blaster bolts are coming to deflect them, and it's blaster bolts are much slower than bullets. Bullets are almost instantaneous, whereas the blaster bolts, they have quite a lengthy travel time. They're still quite fast, but they do have a travel time. You would be able to see them. You wouldn't need to have the precognition. That is another piece of Star Wars lore. It is a bit, do you really need that piece of lore? But yeah. Anyway, thank you all for watching. And I'll see you all next time, and it may be another compilation video where I finish off the Last of the Jedi Desperate Mission. Probably, I don't know. But yeah, I'll see you all next time. Bye.